Wow, that's a tough intro to swallow. I'm going to resist the urge to do what I normally do and give you all some self-deprecating humor about my legitimacy, and I'll channel a buddy of mine, Ryan, who has lived a very public life with a lot of challenges, who always reminds me to look a compliment in the eye. And so, Chris, thank you to the Morehead-Cain Foundation. I hope that when you hear from us this week and we tell you how fantastic you are out there, that you're also willing to look a compliment in the eye. So again, thank you. It's a real honor. I will say, though, that those professional biographical rundowns of people's careers are a little funny to me sometimes. You know, life is long and complicated, and these LinkedIn profiles you see tend to leave out all the good texture, right? They leave out the failure, the fun. It's always like Kinney was a child prodigy. He time warped to Morehead Scholar, and now he's a captain of industry. And it's like it all just happened so fast. But there's so much more to these lives. I have this one friend, Roy Bahat, at work, who he does things a little differently. He runs this really cool venture capital firm at Bloomberg that invests in the technology that drives the future of work. And if you go to his profile, his LinkedIn profile, you'll see there he was a Rhodes Scholar, like a few of our friends around here. But Roy also likes to focus equally on notes like this. Associate at McKinsey, felt imposter syndrome at giving businesses advice despite never having been in business. Accidentally called management consulting, quote, value-added PowerPoint resale, end quote, in a meeting with my boss. And if I was just being as honest in my profile too, in the midst of all of the great things that Chris said, mine might say, was a Duke fan until age 16. Some things are just a little better left unsaid and unprinted, I suppose. But got a call from my high school athletic director, Kirby Kirkpatrick, on Morehead application deadline day to ask me why the hell I hadn't turned mine in yet. After I probably said something about soccer recruitment to schools up north, he said, don't be stupid, turn in the application and see what happens. And so I put myself in the position that you're all in tonight, and I became a Tar Heel. Life is a game of inches, as they say, right? But as Chris mentioned, after Carolina, I went to CBS Sports, and I built a career as a communications and public relations executive. I've worked with some amazing businesses and people like David Yurman, athletes, designers, and helped set communication strategies for a few World Cups, Olympics, and other events. And so is a bit of a through line, and I hate to oversimplify it too much because they pay me to do this job, but the job is kind of to make things look cool, right? Keep them cool. Or at certain times, in a little bit of a crisis, to make sure you know, hey, we messed that up, but don't worry, everything's cool, right? And a few years ago, we helped launch this new franchise in LA, and the headline was, Bloomberg goes Hollywood, right? A brand that's sometimes pigeonholed as a hyper-specialized company for finance now has more street cred with the spenders in the media and entertainment industry. Job done. At Nike, it was things like, how do I make people care about these new Super Bowl cleats when cleats aren't terribly effective for streetwear? We brought the scientists in to talk to influencers and media about 3D printing, which is a pretty new technology at the time. And it's a lot of fun going deeper, telling stories, and helping smart people and ideas find an audience through all the creativity and innovation we can muster. But what is cool, really, right? It's defined by different contexts, individuals, generations. And despite being the father of 3 kids who keep telling my wife, Kari, and I that there's a new term to replace it with pretty much every single week, it does feel like cool is the one slang term or concept that's lasted longer than any other. And I've spent some time thinking about this, sometimes in the shower when I'm lost in thought or on the New York City subway, right? What's the etymology of cool? Where does this come from? I've dug around a little and also reached out to a Morehead-Cain cousin, Dr. Scott Heath, who's a humanities scholar specializing in Black literature and popular culture, who helped point me in the right direction, too. There's some cool that's referenced even by Chaucer, Shakespeare, and in West African spiritual context, way back. But it really started to take on new modern meaning in the 1930s and 1940s jazz scene and during World War II. And a saxophonist named Lester Young gets a lot of credit. Some might have used it to convey assurance to peers despite the Jim Crow era, to convey calm or safety amidst the madness. And then it evolved to credit someone who was creating change through art, through protest, or popular culture. Its resonance grew and shifted even more in the 50s and 60s, and it's become synonymous with the measurement of ideas, people, products that attract others to want to know more about them. And true to my thesis, the linguist and anthropologist Robert L. Moore rated it as the most popular slang term of approval in all of English. So there are many permutations of the word and the concept, but one I want to dig into a bit more with you all is the concept of popularity that comes with it. What does popular mean, and what does it matter? There are some interesting recent studies on this, and I spoke to another expert, one of the psychology professors here on campus, who wrote a book on it, Mitch Prinstein. Apologies. He breaks popular into two types. There is status, and then there is likability. And he explained it to me like this. Pure status is hierarchical, and studies show it's much less correlated with long-term positive growth and outcomes in life. Whereas likability is more egalitarian, and the data of people with the related traits show much better outcomes and success, to be honest. Now, when I talk about being liked, I'm not talking about people-pleasing and avoiding respectful debate with those who oppose you. I'm talking about making other people feel seen and included in whatever corner of influence or demographic they're in. They're attractive because they make most other people feel like a part of something. It's the same thing for any purpose-driven company or organization you love. And if they do happen to have the status part, as I heard Chris mention earlier to me, I want to know how they act at the height of their influence. As all stars in your communities right now with a little bit of extra swagger probably right now, maybe that speaks to you. I want to focus on that for a moment a little bit more because the University of North Carolina that I know and love brings young people like you a huge opportunity to capitalize on. The University of the People, by design, has an exceptionally wide range of ideas, political affiliations, constituencies, and objectives floating around and in it. So the potential I see and feel from so many of you when I come here to play a part in finals weekend is a chance for you to be in the center of the connection, to be actual influencers, the way that the word was intended to be used at its roots. I've met a couple of dozen of you over the last couple of days pretty intensely, and if you saw a little smile on my face at one point, it was probably because I got this forward-looking image of you walking through the quad out there, head nodding to people, stopping to speak, sharing in humanity, exemplifying what cool really looks like. And if I'm being honest, I spent a period here in Chapel Hill maybe worrying too much about how other people define that for me. The status-driven one, and not knowing how to unlock the other part authentically. I felt the weight probably a little bit of trying to live up to what the Charlotte Observer plaque on my wall my parents had said about me and all my promise, and I chased the wrong version of it for a moment. But this university had my back. The late Dr. John Bittner, my first broadcast journalism professor, did. The foundation did. Chuck Loveless, Megan Mizaki, names that you'll probably hear from the legacy of this place if you stick around long enough. And maybe without knowing just how much, so did a guy named the late Chuck Stone. And if you haven't heard about Chuck Stone yet, ask Claude tonight when you get a minute. He had this perfectly done silver flat top, always a bow tie of some different color, and you'd find him riding his bike through campus. His vocabulary was immense. He fit just about every definition or version of cool I could dream up. And he taught this course on censorship that was harder to get than any Nike sneakers app drop, Taylor Swift show, or gamer badge, right? And I was fortunate to get into that class, and when it was term paper time, I came to see him in his legendary office that I'd heard so much about. On the walls, he was debating Malcolm X on a studio set, sharing space with Martin Luther King Jr. He'd served as a Tuskegee Airman and risked his life as a journalist. And I walked in to talk about my paper on the history of censorship in hip-hop. I sat in that chair that day, sharing my proposal and research on the music, court battles, and legislation of famous labels like Death Row Records, Ice-T, and others. And I had his full attention. I felt seen, heard, connected. That's influence. And I realize now the fame and popularity of Chuck Stone, the perfect vocabulary, the larger-than-life personality, the jobs and the work he'd produced. He'd have quite a LinkedIn page, by the way. They were byproducts of the relationships he built. One moment at a time, one person at a time. That was his greatness, and that was the best paper I ever wrote. And by the way, while we're here, to me the photos on Chuck's walls weren't just vanity pics to show who his acquaintances were. He'd have had a hell of an Instagram, too, by the way. He was often in active debate with the people that he broke bread with who were on his walls. So I'll just make one little plug here while I have you. It's easy to act cool and connect with people when you're all in the same color blue. But what about someone in that other different blue or the wrong color baseball hat? No single person is the chief arbiter or director of what makes you relevant or influential. And I'll repeat Chris's words. Strive to be not just impressive, but impactful, significant, not just successful. It's connection, not just status. If you were to come by my office at Bloomberg tomorrow, you'd find the man whose name is on the company, the former two-term mayor of New York City, who built the technology business that revolutionized global financial markets, sitting at a desk the same size as mine, no office, wearing a name badge every day that says Mike in big letters. I encourage you to keep wearing your personal brand of cool like a loose garment and welcome people you see to talk and build something too. The algorithms and agents, by the way, we're playing with now are a vast source of influence. They have so much utility for the work I do and that many of you will, and the market demands that we use them to build our brands and companies. I also have to remember that projecting the perception that I have relationships and influence is not quite the same thing as earning and enhancing those relationships for real. When I started coming back around and came back into service in 2008, I mentioned Chuck Loveless, who was Chris's predecessor. And I said to Chuck, man, I wish I'd done more. I wish I was doing more. And he looked me in the eye and he said, Brian, you contribute to your community meaningfully. People rely on you. That's all we ever cared about. I'd been stuck in someone else's definition of influence, and he was saying in so many words, it's cool, Brian. How will you carry and empower yourself and others with the popularity and influence you bring to this campus? Ask yourself that question tonight. I'm honored to be here tonight to hear more from you about it, and we have some more time now to do it live, so let's talk. Thank you.